when a heavily pregnant woman went into labor in the middle of a highway pileup. Trapped in a wrecked car with no ambulance in sight. Her husband thought he was about to lose everything. But just when all hope seemed lost, a motorcycle roared through the gridlock traffic, ridden by none other than Keanu Reeves, with his loyal golden-furred dog, Blaze, by his side. What followed was a real-life race against death, proving that sometimes heroes don't wear capes. They ride motorcycles. How did Keanu and Blaze pull off the impossible? Could they get Sarah to the hospital in time? And what shocking twist awaited them there? Stick around, because this is one story you won't want to miss. Nathan Miller had always imagined the birth of his daughter as a moment of pure joy, a culmination of months of anticipation and preparation. He had spent weeks building the perfect nursery, sanding down every wooden rail of her crib until it was smooth as silk. His wife, Olivia, had already packed their hospital bags and arranged everything for a seamless trip to the delivery room. Their son, Jake, was beyond excited to become a big brother. But life had a cruel way of tearing plans apart. It was supposed to be a quick trip, a simple errand to pick up last-minute essentials before the baby arrived. The day had been perfect, with golden sunlight streaming through the windshield as Nathan drove down the freeway. Olivia sat beside him, rubbing her swollen belly, a small smile on her lips. "She's been so restless today," she mused. "Like she knows she's about to meet us." Nathan chuckled. "She's got your stubbornness, that's for sure." Olivia playfully nudged his arm. "And your impatience." Their laughter was cut short by the screech of tires. Nathan's head snapped to the rearview mirror just in time to see it. A massive semi-truck barreling toward them, the driver desperately trying to regain control. "Nathan!" Olivia screamed. Time collapsed. Nathan yanked the wheel, but there was nowhere to go. The impact came like a sledgehammer, metal twisted, glass shattered, the force sending their car spinning out of control. The world blurred into chaos. Then, silence. Nathan gasped for air, his chest heaving. His hands trembled as he turned to Olivia. "Olivia, are you okay?" Her face was pale, her breath shallow. She clutched her stomach, her lips quivering. "Nathan!" Her voice was weak, filled with agony. "Something's wrong." "The baby!" Nathan's heart pounded. He fumbled for his phone, his fingers barely able to press the numbers. 911. "What's your emergency?" "My wife. She's pregnant. There was an accident. She's in labor. We need help." The operator's voice remained calm, but the words she spoke made his blood run cold. "Sir, emergency units are delayed due to multiple collisions. They may not reach you for at least 30 minutes. Can you get her to the hospital yourself?" Nathan's eyes darted around. Cars were locked in place, bumper to bumper. The highway was at a complete standstill. "No," he whispered, gripping his hair. "We're trapped." Olivia let out a sharp cry, her nails digging into his arm. "Nathan, I can't," she gasped. "The baby's coming." Panic seized him. He couldn't deliver their child here, in the middle of a wreck, with no medical help. He couldn't lose her. He couldn't lose their baby. Then, a sound cut through the chaos, a deep, rumbling engine. Nathan's head snapped up. A black motorcycle weaved through the tangled mass of cars, its rider moving with effortless precision. A golden-furred dog, strong and alert, darted alongside it, its sharp eyes scanning the scene. The bike came to a screeching stop next to their wrecked car. The rider pulled off his helmet, revealing piercing eyes and a face unmistakable to anyone who had ever seen an action movie. Keanu Reeves. Nathan blinked, as if his mind were playing tricks on him. But there he was, standing in the flesh, calm and composed, as if he had stepped right out of a blockbuster film. Keanu's eyes landed on Olivia. He took in her condition in an instant before turning to Nathan. "How far apart are the contractions?" His voice was steady, unwavering. Nathan stammered. I don't know, but she's in pain, and we can't get an ambulance." Keanu gave a single, decisive nod. "We don't have time to wait. We're getting her to the hospital. Now. Nathan hesitated. How? Keanu motioned to his parked truck a few feet away. You take my truck. I'll take Olivia on the bike. Blaze will clear the way. The golden-furred dog let out a bark. As if acknowledging his orders, the dog leaped onto the hood of a nearby car, barking and weaving through the traffic, guiding drivers to move aside. Miraculously, a path began to form. Nathan's instincts screamed that this was madness, but he had no choice. With adrenaline surging through his veins, he scrambled out of the wreck, barely registering his own injuries. Keanu gently lifted Olivia into his arms, careful yet efficient. Hold on, he murmured to her as he settled her onto the bike. Olivia let out a weak nod, barely able to hold on. Keanu revved the engine. The tires screeched against the pavement, and then, like a bullet, they shot forward, racing against time, against fate, against the impossible. Blaze led the charge, barking orders to the world. Nathan gripped the steering wheel of Keanu's truck, chasing after them. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The hospital loomed in the distance, but Olivia's breathing was fading. Nathan swallowed back his fear. Just a little longer. Just hold on. Would they make it in time? The night air was thick with tension as Keanu Reeves gripped the handlebars of his motorcycle, his body moving in perfect sync with the roaring engine beneath him. Olivia clung to his back, her breath ragged, her grip weakening with each passing second. Blaze sprinted ahead, his golden fur flashing under the flickering streetlights, barking sharply to clear a path through the congested highway. The city, usually indifferent, seemed to hold its breath as a Hollywood legend and his loyal companion led a desperate charge against time itself. Behind them, Nathan gritted his teeth, knuckles white on the steering wheel of Keanu's truck. Every bump, every sharp turn, sent a jolt of pain through his already bruised body. But he refused to slow down. His wife, his unborn daughter, everything that mattered to him was on that motorcycle. Keanu weaved through narrow gaps, slipping between cars with the effortless precision of a seasoned rider. His focus was unshakable, but even he knew that Olivia's condition was worsening. He could feel her trembling against his back, her forehead pressing into his shoulder, her gasps becoming shallower. You still with me, Olivia? He called over his shoulder. A weak murmur was all she could muster. Blaze let out a sharp bark, signaling that the path ahead was finally clearing. The hospital's emergency entrance was visible now, its bright red neon sign flickering like a beacon in the dark. We're almost there, Keanu assured her, pushing the bike even harder. The tires screeched as they tore into the hospital driveway. Nurses and doctors at the entrance froze in disbelief as Keanu skidded to a stop, his leather boots hitting the pavement in one swift motion. Without hesitation, he lifted Olivia into his arms and rushed toward the ER doors. Nathan barely had time to park before he was sprinting after them. His heart felt like it might burst from his chest. She's in labor, 39 weeks. She was in a crash. Keanu's voice was steady, urgent. The hospital staff sprang into action, a team of nurses immediately surrounding Olivia, placing her onto a gurney and wheeling her inside. The hospital corridors blurred around Nathan as he sprinted after the gurney, his heart hammering like a war drum. Olivia's face had lost all color, her breaths coming in short, pained gasps. Nurses shouted instructions, the wheels of the gurney screeching against the linoleum floor as they rushed her toward the operating room. Stay with me, Liv, Nathan pleaded, running alongside her. He grasped her hand, cold and limp in his own. We're here. You're gonna be okay. Just a little longer. Her fingers barely curled around his. Her lips trembled. Nathan, promise me. He shook his head furiously, fighting back the tears that burned his eyes. Don't talk like that. We're gonna meet our daughter together. Olivia's gaze, filled with exhaustion but laced with something deeper, love, fear, hope locked onto his. Promise me. You'll love her enough for both of us. If I don't. No, Nathan choked out. You are not saying goodbye. You hear me? The doors swung open, and a nurse gently pushed him back. Sir, we need to take her in now. He refused to let go of her hand. I should be with her. I'm sorry, but you need to wait outside. Olivia's fingers slipped from his. The doors slammed shut, and Nathan was alone. The waiting room felt like a void, swallowing him whole. Minutes stretched into eternity, the sterile white walls closing in, the air thick with something suffocating. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. His chest wouldn't stop tightening. Keanu sat beside him, silent but solid. No empty reassurances, no meaningless words, just presence. And somehow, that was enough. Nathan buried his face in his hands, his body trembling. She was supposed to be okay, he whispered. This wasn't supposed to happen like this. Keanu exhaled slowly, leaning forward. Life never follows the script we write. Nathan let out a hollow laugh, one that held no humor. I don't know how to do this without her. You don't have to, Keanu said simply. Not yet. Nathan clenched his fists. But what if she doesn't wake up? Keanu's voice was quiet, but firm. Then you remember her. You love that little girl like Olivia's still here, and you tell her every single day how much her mother fought to bring her into this world. Nathan inhaled sharply, nodding, but his mind couldn't shake the terrifying thought. What if Olivia never got to hold their daughter? The clock above the waiting room ticked mercilessly. Then, finally, movement. A doctor emerged from the double doors, still clad in surgical gear. Nathan shot to his feet, his legs unsteady. Mr. Miller. The doctor's voice was careful, controlled. Your daughter has been delivered. Nathan exhaled, his entire body sagging in relief. But something in the doctor's expression made his breath catch. What about Olivia? His voice cracked. The doctor hesitated, just for a fraction of a second. She lost a lot of blood. We managed to stabilize her, but she's in critical condition. She's unconscious. Nathan swayed. Keanu was there in an instant, steadying him with a firm hand on his shoulder. The doctor's gaze softened. She's strong, but the next 24 hours will be crucial. Nathan nodded, but his body felt numb. Would you like to meet your daughter? The doctor asked. For a moment, he almost said no. How could he hold his child while Olivia lay motionless, caught between life and death? But then he remembered Olivia's words. Promise me you'll love her enough for both of us. He forced himself to move. The NICU was filled with soft beeping, tiny cries, and rows of incubators. Nathan's heart twisted painfully at the sight of the fragile newborns fighting their first battles in life. Then, a nurse led him to a small bassinet, and his breath caught. She was so small, too small, wrapped in a pink hospital blanket. Her tiny chest rose and fell with each shallow breath. Wisps of dark hair peeked out from beneath a cap, and when she stirred, her face scrunched in the softest, most delicate way. She's perfect, the nurse whispered. Nathan reached out, his hands trembling as he gently cradled his daughter for the first time. She weighed almost nothing, but the moment she was in his arms, something inside him broke wide open. Tears spilled down his cheeks as he pressed his forehead against hers. Hey, sweetheart, he whispered, his voice hoarse. I'm your daddy. She let out the tiniest sigh, as if recognizing him. Nathan's heart clenched. Your mom. She fought so hard to bring you into this world. She wanted to meet you so bad. She loves you, baby girl, more than anything. The weight of everything crushed him all at once. The accident, the hospital, Olivia lying in a bed, her life hanging by a thread. But in his arms, his daughter breathed. She was here. She was the proof that Olivia had fought. And now, he had to fight. 2 hours passed. Nathan sat by Olivia's bedside, their daughter nestled safely in the NICU. The machines beeped steadily, keeping Olivia tethered to life. But she remained motionless, pale, so unlike herself. Nathan took her hand, pressing it to his lips. Liv, it's me. His voice wavered. She's beautiful. You did it. Our daughter is perfect. But she needs you. I need you. The silence was unbearable. I don't know how to do this without you, he admitted, his voice cracking. I promised I'd be strong for her. But, God, Liv, I can't do this alone. His grip on her hand tightened. Please come back to us. Nothing. Then, the faintest twitch of her fingers. Nathan's breath hitched. Liv. He leaned forward, his heart slamming against his ribs. Can you hear me? Her eyelids fluttered. A shallow inhale. Then, the softest whisper. Nathan. A sob broke from his throat. He buried his face against her hand, laughing through the tears. I'm here. Liv. I'm right here. She exhaled weakly, her lips forming the words she didn't have the strength to say. He pressed a kiss against her forehead. She's waiting for you. Olivia. Our little girl. She's strong. Just like her mom. And for the first time since the accident, hope filled the room. Before this incredible story continues, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever witnessed a moment where love defied all odds, hit that like button because Olivia's fight isn't over yet. And neither is their story. The first rays of morning filtered through the hospital blinds, casting a soft golden glow over the room where Olivia lay, her fragile body still connected to beeping monitors. Nathan never left her side, his fingers intertwined with hers, as if his touch alone could tether her back to life. He had spent the entire night whispering to her, telling her stories about their daughter, how tiny she was, how she curled her little fingers around his thumb, how she had Olivia's delicate features. Olivia's eyelids fluttered again, her breathing uneven but steady. Her voice, weak but determined, broke the heavy silence. Our baby. Nathan lifted his head, his heart hammering. She's here. Liv. She's beautiful. She's strong. Just like you. She struggled to move her lips, as if trying to form more words. But the effort was too much. A tear slipped down her cheek, and Nathan quickly wiped it away. Shoo. Don't push yourself. Just rest. I'll bring her to you when you're ready. But he knew Olivia, and even in this moment, when her body was barely clinging to consciousness, her heart ached to hold their daughter. A soft knock at the door interrupted them, and a nurse stepped inside, carrying a tiny bundle wrapped in a pastel pink blanket. Nathan's breath caught as he realized what they were doing, giving Olivia the one thing she needed more than anything. The nurse gave him a gentle smile. Would you like to hold your daughter, Mrs. Miller? Olivia's eyes welled with tears as Nathan carefully took their baby from the nurse and placed her into Olivia's trembling arms. The moment their daughter rested against her chest, something in Olivia's expression changed. It was as if the weight of all the pain, all the fear, all the suffering melted away, replaced by something pure and infinite. Nathan watched as Olivia traced her fingertips over the baby's tiny face, her lips parting in silent awe. She's perfect, she whispered. Nathan swallowed the lump in his throat. She's been waiting for you. Their daughter stirred, letting out a tiny yawn before nuzzling closer to Olivia's warmth. Nathan couldn't take his eyes off them. For so many agonizing hours, he had feared this moment would never come, that their baby would grow up only knowing stories of the mother who had fought to bring her into the world but never got to hold her. But Olivia was here. She was alive, and she was holding their child. Tears streamed down Olivia's face as she pressed a shaky kiss to the baby's forehead. Sophia, she whispered. Nathan blinked, startled. They had discussed baby names for months, never settling on one. But in that instant, Olivia knew. Sophia, Nathan repeated, tasting the name on his tongue. Fit. It means wisdom. Olivia gave the smallest nod. Because she already knows how loved she is. Nathan brushed a hand through Olivia's hair, letting out a breath that felt like he had been holding it since the accident. She's going to be okay. Liv. We all are. A tired smile pulled at Olivia's lips as she looked up at him, her eyes filled with exhaustion but also something much deeper, gratitude. Hours passed in quiet moments. Olivia drifted in and out of sleep, Sophia resting in her arms whenever the nurses allowed it. Every time she stirred awake, Nathan was there, never once letting go of her hand. But the doctors remained cautious. Olivia was stable, but her body had been through immense trauma. The next few days would determine whether her recovery would be full or if there would be lasting complications. Nathan tried not to think about the worst. Instead, he focused on the present, the rise and fall of Olivia's breathing, the soft weight of their daughter in his arms, the warmth of her tiny fingers curled around his. But as the sun began to set, Olivia's breathing grew more labored. Her grip on Nathan's hand weakened. Her eyes fluttering closed for longer stretches of time. The monitors beeped steadily, but something felt different. Nathan's heart clenched. He knew she was exhausted, but fear gnawed at the edges of his mind. Was this just fatigue, or was her body slipping away again? As night fell, the hospital grew quieter, the world outside continuing as if nothing had happened. But inside this small room, a battle was still being fought. Would Olivia's body regain its strength? Or had she given everything she had left just to hold her daughter one last time? Would Nathan have to face the unimaginable after coming so close to hope? And if the worst happened, how would he ever find the strength to keep going? The room was quiet except for the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor, a fragile tether between Olivia and the world she was slipping away from. Nathan sat by her bedside, his fingers curled around her lifeless hand, pressing it against his forehead as though his touch alone could pull her back. Her skin was cold, her breath shallow, her body a fragile shell of the woman who had fought so fiercely to bring their daughter into the world. She had held Sophia. She had whispered her name. She had smiled. And now, she was fading. Nathan refused to believe it. He tightened his grip, his thumb tracing slow circles over the back of her hand. "Olivia, can you hear me?" His voice cracked, the weight of exhaustion and fear pressing against his chest. "Sophia is waiting for you. She needs you. I need you." There was no response, no flicker of recognition. The nurse had warned him that this could happen, that the human body could only endure so much before it forced itself into stillness, preserving whatever strength remained. But Olivia wasn't just anyone. She was his wife, his best friend, the woman who had never once backed down from a fight. A deep breath shuddered through him as he leaned closer. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I need you to fight just a little longer. Do you remember the night we sat under the stars and talked about what our future would look like? You told me we'd have a house full of laughter. You promised me that, and I need you to keep that promise." His fingers curled tighter around hers, willing her to respond. A nurse stepped inside, her voice soft but firm. "Mr. Miller, you should get some rest. Your body needs to recover, too." Nathan shook his head. "I'm not leaving her." Keanu, who had been sitting silently in the corner, stood and walked over, placing a firm hand on his shoulder. "You don't have to leave, but you need to breathe." Nathan exhaled sharply, running a trembling hand down his face. "How am I supposed to do that when every second she's slipping further away?" Keanu's gaze was steady. "Because she's still here." Nathan nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. Then, without warning, the heart monitor let out a sharp, erratic beep. His breath caught. The numbers on the screen fluctuated, wild and unstable. A nurse rushed in, immediately calling for the doctor. The once steady rhythm of Olivia's heartbeat was unraveling, her breaths growing shallower by the second. Nathan's pulse pounded in his ears as he grabbed her hand. "Olivia, stay with me." The doctor pushed through the door, his expression grim. "She's crashing. We need to act now." Nathan's world tilted. A flurry of movement erupted around him. Nurses adjusting IVs. A crash cart being wheeled in. Orders being shouted. Nathan stumbled back as a nurse guided him away, his vision blurring as the reality of what was happening sank in. They were losing her. No, no, no. he whispered, gripping the edge of a chair to keep himself upright. She was fine. She was awake. Keanu caught his arm before he collapsed. The doctor's voice cut through the chaos. Clear. The first jolt from the defibrillator made Olivia's body arch violently. Nothing. Again. A second shock. The beeping on the monitor remained erratic. Nathan's entire body trembled. He had been here before, on the other side of a glass wall, watching as she was taken from him. But this was worse. This was final. One more time, the doctor ordered. A third shock. The room held its breath. A weak, stuttering beep filled the silence. Nathan staggered forward, clutching the edge of the hospital bed as his knees threatened to give out. His eyes locked onto the monitor, watching as the numbers slowly evened out, stabilizing. She was still here. A nurse adjusted the oxygen mask over Olivia's face, her hands steady despite the tension in the room. The doctor exhaled, rubbing his temple before turning to Nathan. She's stabilized, but her body is exhausted. We need to monitor her closely. Nathan barely heard him. His eyes never left Olivia's face. Her lashes fluttered slightly, a faint tremor passing through her fingers. It wasn't much, but it was enough. He leaned down, pressing a soft kiss against her forehead. You're still here, he murmured. I knew you wouldn't leave us. Her fingers twitched in his grasp. A tear slipped down his cheek as he whispered, Come back to us. Live. Sophia is waiting for you. The room grew quiet again, but the heaviness had lifted just slightly. The battle wasn't over, but Olivia was still fighting. And as long as she fought, Nathan would never let go. The quiet hum of the hospital at night was a stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded just hours ago. Inside Olivia's room, the steady beep of the heart monitor was the only reassurance that she was still here, still holding on. Nathan sat beside her, exhausted, his fingers gently wrapped around her limp hand. He had whispered every promise, every memory, every plea he could think of, but Olivia had yet to respond. His body ached, but the pain was nothing compared to the fear that gnawed at him. She had fought so hard to bring Sophia into the world. Was there anything left in her to keep fighting? Nathan leaned forward, resting his forehead against their joined hands. I can't lose you, he whispered, his voice raw. I don't know how to do this without you. A soft shuffle at the doorway made him lift his head. Keanu stood there, silent as ever, but his presence carried weight. Beside him, Blaze Saturday, her golden fur illuminated by the dim hospital lights. Her intelligent eyes locked onto Nathan, sensing the storm raging inside him. Keanu stepped forward, speaking in that quiet but firm way of his. Come with me. Nathan blinked, barely registering the words. I can't leave her. Keanu exhaled, his gaze steady. She's stable, and you need air. Nathan wanted to argue, wanted to tell him that he couldn't step away. But Keanu didn't say anything else. He just looked at him, a quiet understanding passing between them. Reluctantly, Nathan let out a slow breath and nodded. As he stood, Blaze instantly rose to her feet, following as the two men walked out into the hospital corridor. The cool night air wrapped around Nathan the moment they stepped outside. The world beyond the hospital still moved. Cars passed in the distance. People walked. Life continued. Felt wrong. His entire existence had shrunk to this one battle. Yet the universe didn't even pause. Blaze brushed up against his leg, grounding him. He looked down at the dog, at the quiet patience in her eyes. There was no judgment, no expectation, just presence. She didn't leave your side, Keanu murmured. Nathan turned to him, confused. What do you mean? Keanu nodded toward Blaze. When we got here, when the doctors took Olivia inside, she stayed, right at the entrance of that room. She wouldn't move. She was watching you. Nathan swallowed, his throat tight. He turned back to Blaze, his hand hesitantly reaching out. She leaned into his touch, warm and steady. She knew you needed her, Keanu added. Nathan exhaled shakily. running his fingers through the soft golden fur. He had never been one to believe in signs or fate. But in that moment, he understood. This wasn't just a dog. This was something else, an unspoken connection. A silent promise. "I don't know how to do this," he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu didn't hesitate. "You don't have to." Nathan turned toward him, his chest tightening. "What if she doesn't wake up?" Keanu met his gaze, unwavering. "Then you remind her why she should." The words struck something deep within Nathan. He looked back toward the hospital, toward Olivia's room where the fight wasn't over yet. Blaze nudged his hand, then turned toward the doors as if guiding him back inside. Nathan took a slow, steady breath. "I need to be with her." Keanu gave a small nod. "Then let's go." And this time, as Nathan stepped forward, he wasn't walking alone. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. The world outside continued as if nothing had changed. But for Nathan, time had frozen in the space where Olivia lay, caught between life and the unknown. He sat by her side, his fingers wrapped around hers, waiting for any sign, any flicker of movement that would tell him she was coming back. The doctors had done all they could. Now, it was up to her. Sophia had been taken back to the NICU, too small and fragile to stay in the room for long. But Nathan had made sure that, for at least a few moments, their daughter had rested against Olivia's chest, feeling the warmth of the mother who had given everything to bring her into this world. Nathan leaned in close, his voice barely above a whisper. "She's waiting for you. Live. Just like me." The silence stretched on. Blaze, who had been lying at the foot of the bed, lifted her head, ears twitching. She watched Olivia with an unwavering focus, sensing something Nathan couldn't yet see. Then Olivia's fingers moved. It was the smallest shift, barely there, but Nathan felt it. His breath caught in his throat. "Olivia!" He sat up, his pulse racing. Her eyelashes fluttered. A slow, hesitant inhale. Then, a whisper so faint he almost didn't hear it. "Nathan!" Tears blurred his vision. He squeezed her hand, bringing it to his lips. "I'm here. Liv. I'm right here." Her breathing was shallow, but steady. Her lips parted again, struggling for strength. "Sophia?" Nathan nodded quickly, brushing a trembling hand over her hair. "She's perfect. She's waiting for you." Her lips curved into the smallest, weakest smile, but it was there. "I want to see her." Nathan let out a choked laugh, pressing his forehead against her hand. "You will. I promise." The door opened, and a nurse gasped softly. "She's awake." Nathan nodded, unable to speak. Blaze stood, her tail wagging slightly as she pressed her nose against Olivia's arm, as if confirming for herself that she was really here. Olivia turned her head weakly, her eyes filled with quiet understanding as she looked at the golden-furred guardian who had never left her side. "Hey, girl," she whispered, her voice barely there. Blaze let out a soft, contented huff, resting her head gently beside Olivia's hand. Keanu stepped into the room, watching the scene unfold. His usual stoic expression softened as he gave a small nod. "Told you she wasn't done fighting." Nathan wiped at his face, laughing shakily. "Yeah, you did." The nurse hurried out to inform the doctors, but Nathan barely noticed. His entire world was here, in this room. Olivia was awake. She had come back to them, and soon, she would hold their daughter in her arms. Nathan exhaled, pressing another kiss to Olivia's hand. "Welcome back, my love." And for the first time since the accident, hope filled the air, not fragile, not fleeting, but real and unshakable. If you loved this story, comment 2. If you didn't, comment 7. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Remember, this is just a fictional story, but behind it lies a powerful message about human kindness, the deep, unspoken connection between people and animals, and most importantly, how love can overcome even the greatest obstacles. If the story touched your heart, Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for Tapestry of World and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another moving story. Every subscription helps us continue bringing you inspiring, emotional, and unforgettable stories. Share this story with someone who needs a little hope today. Thank you for being part of our journey.